For Jonty Rhodes to say his hamstring's gone, we still can't believe it, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Namaste, Jai Hind, good to have you all here. Big round of applause, Jonty.
Thank you.
And see the fun part. I'm the anchor dressed like a sports person. He's the sports person dressed like an anchor today. But here at this summit, my first question to you is, you said if you don't go for the catch, you never know you can catch it. Have you always done that? Has that been a philosophy for you?
Good evening, everybody. Anand, thank you. Hi, everybody. If you don't go, you'll never know. It was certainly a mantra for me as a cricket player. And, you know, I think growing up, what I was fortunate to have was a father who was a school principal and also a sports master. And the one lesson that and I'll tell you that story one day when no one else is listening, he literally drummed into us three boys, his sons, that he said, you know, if you're going to practice, people work hard everywhere, whether it's in sport or industry, everybody's working hard. He says, but you can go to practice and practice for 2 hours and achieve very little. Or you can go down and practice like it's a match situation. Because he said, people will tell you throughout your career that it's practice that's making perfect. But he said, nay, that's only half the story. Because it's perfect practice that makes perfect. So I was, yes, going for the ball at practice, because what you are at practice, the day before, the day before, the day before, a part of the team culture, a part of your culture, that is a habit that then when the game starts, you're already in the mode of going for the ball regardless of what the outcome is going to be. So I'm really grateful to my father for that, because my career was probably highlighted by 2 or 3 photographs as opposed to 3 or 4 great knocks or innings that saved the country from real defeat. And just that philosophy of if you don't go, you'll never know, it was certainly something that was started as a young schoolboy thanks to my father.
See, the first time you went for the catch, because if you don't go, you won't know. But then when you started seeing those photographs, you know, if it's at backward point, then it cannot pass Jonty Rhodes. Did that pressure of performance, pressure of delivery then act on you? Did it then suddenly start weighing in on you, saying, I can't allow the ball to pass? Did that happen? Because that's what happens. Everybody in our corporate careers or otherwise, like in sport, you first start doing things for the love of it, because you want to do it. You just enjoy it. And when people realize you're so good at it, then the burden of expectations weighs in on your shoulders. Did that happen with you?
Well, the amazing thing about my cricketing career was that fielding wasn't really my job. You know, I was supposed to be a batter. I had a very average for a long part of my career. I mean, I ended on a decent average of 35. But for a long part of my cricketing career, I was between 26 and 28, but saving 20 in the fields. Everybody said, no, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. So the pressure only came really when I was batting, because there you get a chance. You really only get one opportunity. Once you're out, you were done. There was no referral. You were out when the umpire's finger was up. So when it came to fielding, amazingly enough, it was something that I'd done growing up as a young boy in South Africa. I was diving around the field. I was recognized by my school masters as a good fielder. So it wasn't because I have a commerce and a marketing degree, realizing that, hey, everybody else is just fielding like this. Or asking the ball boy, throw the ball back, and there's a gap in the market, so let me become a good fielder. I was doing that as a youngster. So no, I didn't feel like it was my main job to be the fielder and therefore under pressure. I mean, I was rated as the #1 fielder in the world. There was only one fielder. It's easy to be #1 when there's nobody else in the market. So no pressure whatsoever, because as I demonstrated, that was kind of fielding in my generation when I started. And I really was somebody who loved fielding and wanted to field. So yes, if I dropped a catch, if I missed the ball, because if you don't go, you'll never know, I would be a little bit upset. But then my captains in Kepler Wessels and Hansi Cronje, especially a good friend of mine, would just come put an arm around me and just say, Jonty, we need you. The team needs you to be at your best game. Ramsey, it'll come. Don't worry. You know, just let that one go. So being in the field was something that I loved to do, and I never felt any pressure because it really was just a passion of mine as opposed to my job.
I asked you this question because I remember somebody in commentary said Jonty had scored just about your career average, 35 runs in the match, but he'd saved about 40 runs in the field. So his contribution is about 75 runs. So you saved more runs on the field, and that was also seen as a contribution. So you changed the dynamic of this third angle of the game, third aspect of the game, batting, bowling, and fielding. That's what you're credited with. Did you ever realize, you said I was the only fielder, but you made fielding a dynamic that became an important dimension of the game. Did you ever realize this is what you've done?
No, not really. I think for a while I felt a bit like the father of fielding. Now I feel like the grandfather of fielding. So and I know what my dad feels like being a grandfather. But throughout my career, right at the start, 1992, I dived into the stumps, and again, a great picture of me running out in Zimam launched my career. But it was only up until the IPL, can I mention, the cricket T20 tournament started in India, that fielding suddenly became a profession, and players had to be good fielders, because every team had 2 or 3 good fielders, but not a fielding coach. So those were players with natural ability. Mohammad Kaif was a great fielder in that era. Yuvraj was a really good fielder too. But you didn't have a coach that was specifically working on that skill set. So people were talking about it for a really long time, from 1992, that fielding, wow, it can make a difference. It can turn a game. But it was only really implemented quite strongly after the IPL started in 2008. So there was quite a long transition. So for me to look back, I'd left the game. I worked for a bank in South Africa. I'd retired from cricket. And that was it. My sort of cricket career was done and dusted because there was no fielding coach. If you wanted to coach, you coached your country, and that was it. Nothing else available. And it's been interesting looking back because I've seen how much fielding has changed. And that's the amazing thing. Whatever industry you're in, there is so much change happening around you. And it's great to have been a part of that transition, although I think what I started has certainly been taken very much to the next level.
How much did leadership, that means a good leader, you said, you had Hansi Cronje or Kepler Wessels put an arm around your shoulder and say, listen, this is what we want you to do. How much does having a good captain, a good leader, matter to you as a performer? How important is that? And when you got into a leadership role or as a mentorship or a coaching role, how much did that matter to you as to how you manage people?
I think it's a really interesting question, Anand, because management and leadership, we always think it's kind of CEOs or anybody in leadership positions in a business, but you don't have to be the captain to be a leader within a group or an organization. And I think that was the key for me as a senior player in the South African team under Hansi Cronje. Kepler Wessels was a totally different story. My dad, the school principal, that was like having Kepler Wessels, like having my dad as the captain. He not only told you what to do, but how to do it. Whereas with Hansi, it was always a discussion. But in Kepler's defense, he had played for Australia for 10 years. Then he had immigrated, then came back to South Africa. The rest of the team had no international experience whatsoever. There were senior players in the side, the Dave Richardsons, the Peter Kirstens, Alan Donald had played in Warwickshire, but no international cricket. So Kepler felt he had to take control. But his issue was he didn't know when to release it. So after 2 seasons, 3 years, suddenly you've got players with 30, 40 internationals under the belt. And they are, we had a farmer, and a lawyer, 2 teachers, 4 university students. So he had people in his organization that he could have then empowered to make their own decisions. But he didn't know how to release that, having started like that. And that was the difference with Hansi Cronje. Hansi really understood each player and what made them tick. Some guys, like me, needed an arm around the shoulder. Some other guys needed a kick in the backside just to, get them going again. And that was so important because without that sort of understanding of each person as unique and the skills that you bring. That's the beauty of a team, is that we have this dynamic of, can you imagine a team of 11 Jonty Rhodeses? It would have been really noisy, very busy in the field, but man, we would have been 5 down in the first 4 overs and then decent in the middle overs. We couldn't bowl at all. So that's a great thing about a team. And the key, I mean, you always hear that old scenario about not only having the right people on the bus, but on the right seat on the bus. So it's so important being able to identify that. And I think the ownership, if you allow that from a leadership point of view, if you allow players to make their own, or be a part, not make their own, you want them to make your own decision. The ball comes at 140 kilometers an hour. You can't ask the captain, what should I do? It's too late. So you need to be able to take ownership. And players take ownership when they are supported by the captain and by the management. And that's been the interesting thing, is that now as a coach, you know, and I talk about if you don't go, you'll never know. That's still a mantra of mine as a fielding coach. But for me, the most important thing, what we work on now, is the process and not the outcome. Because in a T20 game, I mean, we play during that IPL period, there's 50-odd games in a very short space of time. You play, you practice, you play, you travel again now. And you can do everything right and not get the outcome or the result that you want. So as a coaching staff, we support the process. But the interesting thing is that when you allow the players to take ownership, you also require a degree of honesty from them. And that honesty is not between me and the player, it's between the player and himself. Because if they can make excuses, oh, Jonty said we must do it this way, or the captain said we must do it that way, it's quite easy to not take responsibility. And mistakes are experience. Success is experience. You know, we learn from both. We learn from mistakes and we learn from success. So I think from a point of view where what I've changed slightly as a coach is you really reinforce the process. And just that honesty that, sure, sometimes we might get the process wrong and we've got to dial it down a bit and re-look at it. Because you can't just keep doing the same thing when you're failing and think it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You have to have a real deep look at it. But support the players in taking ownership for that and encourage them. You put in the effort, you look into process, the outcome, we will support whatever happens.
Did you ever think you'll make a good captain? Did you ever want to captain South Africa?
Never, ever, never, ever. You know, it was interesting. I captained my state team for 6 matches, I think, 6 first-class matches, and eventually I had people abusing me on the side of the field on day 3 of a 4-day match. And I just said, please, man, you got children here sitting next to you. That language is atrocious. I can hear you. They can hear you. Wait until the end of the result. When we lose on day 4, and in fact, we won the game, if we lose on day 4, then shout at me as much as you want. But, oh, I paid for my ticket. I can say what I want. So I'm a bit sensitive in that way. So from a captaincy point of view, making the tough calls, I've never wanted to be a leader. I think that's probably one of the hardest jobs as management in an organization is making those tough calls that, you know, you either advancing people up on a career or on a ladder, or you taking them down a peg or two. So those sort of decisions I've never sat comfortably with me. I've always wanted to be a team player as opposed to be that person making the final decision.
But let me ask you, when you look at teams, and you've coached a lot of teams as a fielding coach, you've mentored a lot of people, can you spot leaders? There are those who would come and say, hey, I want to be captain. I want to do this. There are others who don't come out and say, and there'll be those like you or me who'd say, listen, I don't want to be leader. I'm happy being part of the team. Give me space to do my thing. I'll do my thing and I'll deliver for the team. I'll step up for the team. Have you ever been able to spot that's the person? That's the person who should captain the side. That's the right leader, manager.
Well, the interesting thing is that the team requires more than just a captain. Because as I said, if the captain's a batter and they're sitting on the side of the field, there's decisions that you have to make as a partnership while you're batting. If you're bowling, and you're the bowler standing at the end of your run-up, and you have to make, with clarity, a decision, you can't seek the captain's guidance. I mean, he can set you a field, you can discuss a plan, but you could change your mind halfway through your run-up. Yeah. You know, and you can't ask. So a lead or a captain is an important, at the toss, sure, you make decisions and all those things, but having leaders within your organization requires, that's why you need a good captain, because that good captain needs to delegate or allow the authority to kind of permeate throughout the organization. Because if it's strictly a top-down management, and it's a good leader, you could have a great captain, great cricket brain, good cricket skills, good understanding of how to read the game, but if you can't read your people, you're in a lot of trouble. So I'm not looking as it's difficult to have the perfect captain because it does require cricket brain. We know that. You can't just, okay, let's see if this works. You certainly need cricket nuance, but you really need a high degree of people skills. So finding the perfect captain, very difficult to say. I'm looking more for leaders. So I'm looking for people in the field that are going to add value to the other people, not just perform their role, but support others in allowing them to play to the best of their ability. So, if you've got a team full of leaders, it's kind of what any captain wants. You want a self-motivated team. You don't want to have the captain, sure, you make the final decisions, the final calls, but players, if they can captain their own areas, you then have a consistent performance, not just one game, but over a tournament and over a longer period of time from a business point of view.
All right, let's change track a little bit. A question I've always wanted to ask you, and I think an admission I've wanted to make. We are all largely Indian citizens here. Some of us may know people who are named after Bharat or Bharat, but nobody has named their children India after the country. So I think one of the biggest tributes that you've given to us as Indians is to name your daughter India. Now let me ask you, why is India so special to you? Why did you do that?
Yeah. How much time? Okay, clock is ticking. Well, from my perspective, to take the clock back, I grew up in apartheid-era South Africa. So that was a white minority government where apartheid literally translates keeping people separate, apart, according to the color of their skin. So if you weren't white, you were not right. Everything else was the other side of right. And I grew up like that. I went to an all-boys school from age 8 to 13. There were 600 white boys. High school from 13 to 18, 1,000 white boys. We played against white boys. Cricket, tennis, hockey, football, and that was it. And in an organized, or in a country like that, where everybody spoke the same, we thought the same, there was no opportunity to grow as an individual because everything was exactly the same. All the experiences were very, very similar. So for me, coming to India, and I've borrowed a motorbike every time I come here. I borrowed because you can fly over India at 30,000 feet. You don't see India. You smell it sometimes on the ground, for sure, but you experience India on two wheels. Because you go to the airport, the team ground in an AC bus with security in front, security behind. But when you ride out on a bike and there's no security, good luck to you. So but it was amazing because I've certainly learned such a valuable lesson here. And the diversity in India is spoken about and it's celebrated across states, but within states, from dialogue or dialect to recipes and the way food is prepared. It's incredible. And I've really understood the fact that the more I learn about other people, the more I learn about myself. So when I tour India, I'm learning the diversity across this country means that it's like being in 10 or 15 different countries at the same time. So, on one stamp on the passport, I can visit many different countries in the space of 10 weeks. So I think that has been, and we're all on this journey. I mean, none of us have reached the destination yet. It's quite scary. My father was in hospital yesterday. So, there's a final destination that not all of us really want to get there in a hurry, but it's a case of going wherever you are on the journey, there are so many life lessons. And because of that segregated upbringing, it's been an incredible journey for me to be a part of this growth of myself as a human, not as a cricket coach, but just as a person that I've really appreciated in this great country.
You actually made Goa your home. India and Nathan are going to school there. You were just telling me. How are they liking it?
Oh, India and Nathan are loving living in Goa. And my wife is too. I mean, she's a yoga teacher, an architect, practiced Vedanta philosophy for a long time. So, so this connect, the reason why we called India. Both kids were born in Mumbai, India and Nathan. So they've spent time in India and have fitted into life in Goa from day one. Because we just lived in Sweden for 2.5 years, really tough. I mean, this time of the year, it's dark. 2:30 in the afternoon, it's dark. The kids at school were speaking Swedish, no English. And unless you were keen on your snowboard, it was quite difficult to get anywhere or do anything. Whereas in India now, from day one, so we were a bit nervous about uprooting our children again. but we really felt like we were bringing them home in a sense. And on day one, they went to school. And Nathan is at the stage where he's making paper airplanes. But it's not like the simple ones I used to make. Like, hey, let me show you. No, Dad, hold on. It's like 15 minutes of fold back, fold this, fold that. And then his plane flies forever. And on the first day that he went to school, they crafted all day out of paper. And I think he probably used half a plantation, which I'm a bit embarrassed about. Luckily, this is not the sustainability conference, no. So we're fine, yeah. But he must have used a pack of that, that sort of printer of paper. And he just said, Dad, that was the best day ever of school. So day one, they were in it. I mean, they don't wear shoes, they don't wear a uniform. That sand in Goa is red. So he comes back from the feet up to the knees, he's red. He's got very red legs and very red feet, but he and India are loving Goa.
तो आपसे अच्छी हिंदी बोलते हैं? नहीं. Okay, so you bought a place in Goa. Did you buy
rented a place in Goa.
You haven't bought it yet.
I'm a cricket coach, not a cricket player. No one's lending me money yet. That's why I'm at the summit.
I was just about to come to your credit score. So are you keeping an eye on your credit score? Yeah, do you get these pop-ups saying you got a pre-approved loan?
No, but I tell you, when I ride past the coconut seller and I pull out my phone pay or my PayTM, he's a bit anxious because, it is amazing. I mean, it really is amazing what I've seen changes as a cricket player. Since 1993 was the first time. I mean, you've all seen the same changes. It's been amazing. But no, my credit score at this stage, it still says coach, not player. So I'm working on it.
No, I'm asking you because our sponsors at this event do the back end of all the lending. So then the next time you have an instant approval on a loan and you click and it's all processed in 10 minutes. So they are the ones who are making sure that you're in debt.
I've got your number, Anant.
All right. Now, let me also ask you, do you see India changing? Not your daughter, the country? And is it changing for the right reasons? There's a lot of noise that's happening. There is a lot of story. We are going and telling the story to the world. We're the third largest economy. But you're somebody who likes to ride around the country. So do you see that change on ground?
I see a great deal of change. And, and I think with change, you're going to have, it depends on your perspective. Because the amazing things, you can see incredible change, two different people, two different outlooks, whether they be political or upbringing. And the perspective is very different. My perspective, as I said, is somebody who's been here as a visitor for a very, very long time, traveled in and out of India, and kind of the service in India has always been something that us cricket players have been blown away by, staying in five-star hotels. So I've never really lived in India on the ground. And this has been, my wife was a bit anxious. She's seen Nariman Point, Juhu Beach, and Nariman Point Ocean. So I told her, let's go live in Agonda, in Goa. Beach will be amazing. She's gone, no chance, not getting in the ocean here. And she's been really, really blown away. So I just think from a point of view, I mean, my coconut seller example, I landed the night of demonetization in India. I mean, I flew overnight and landed at 8 a.m. And I think cutoff was midnight. They banned, and I had of course, everyone had a wallet full of notes in those days. So I landed in India and just literally left them there. So from a change perspective, there has been many great changes. And I think what's exciting for me is that now most of my LinkedIn connection requests are CEO and founder, co-founder, CEO. And it's amazing because I'm now starting again in business, or for the first time in business. I mean, I worked in a bank. And I think what you see here is a belief in the country, one, or the economy of the country and the stability of the country. And then secondly, the belief in a system. We don't always, as South Africans, understand that system, I must be honest, especially when you're on a motorbike and there are people coming at you. But there is a system, and it's incredible to see the confidence in that system. And I think that's always so important. South Africa, we don't have the confidence. We have a system, we have an infrastructure, but no confidence. And it's incredible, that perspective, because, I mean, often that is, we talk about change and innovation, and people think innovation has to be some new gadget, like this thing on my finger that's telling me my heart is racing or it's relaxed, or, you know, or the watch or the steps that I'm taking. And innovation has got to be something brand spanking new that no one's seen or heard of before. But often innovation is just changing your outlook, doing something slightly differently. And that perspective is so important, because I think India is a land not just of opportunity, but of innovation, because people are prepared to look at things at a slightly different viewpoint.
So let me ask you from a sports perspective. You're somebody who played multiple sport. You played hockey and you played 2-3 other sports, if I remember correctly. Do you see us as a nation becoming a far more sporting nation, a sport-inclined nation, or a fitness-inclined nation? In the last 10, 15 years that you've been here.
You guys have got more Olympic medals than us. Thank you, Mr. Chopra. You know, but I went to one of the schools in Goa, in Konkan, quite close to us, to meet, because it's a government-funded school, and they don't have any cricket facilities. But wow, kabaddi and kho-kho. You know, these kids are playing in the dirt, and they've got speed and they've got pace. And I think the key for me is that there was, just because of the IPL platform, there was nothing else for youngsters to showcase their skills. And now you have your sports academies or institutes of sport in India. You have various different cricket leagues. You have different kabaddi leagues. You have so many different options from a sport perspective. And it's also started with Kelo India. I mean, India is moving, because that really is what sport should be about at junior level. Because some of your best cricket players are probably not even getting the opportunity to play cricket, or your best football players are not getting the opportunity to play football yet. But the fact that there's more and more focus on youngsters participating, I think India is on the right track. Are there any Australians in the audience? No, okay, we're fine. Because I think they have a slightly different attitude to ours, and I say ours up here on the stage, is that they want their kids to participate, but play to win. No, I'm looking for my kids to play and participate at 4 different sports if they can. But providing those opportunities are key to making sure that India goes, with the population that it has, access to facilities, encouragement, access for coaches to grow their game. I think India is certainly on the right trajectory when it comes to a sporting nation, not just a cricketing nation.
Is there anything on your bucket list that you want to do?
Well, in India, wherever. Well, it's interesting because you know,
we all have bucket lists.
Yeah.
We all have bucket lists, and I'm sure you have one too. So, one that you really want to tick.
Yeah, I want to make lots of money so I can retire and go live on the beach. Oh no, I'm there already. I'm on the beach already. So,
you made lots of money already. You're still making
I've been
money.
there. Yeah. So, you know, I think every time I ride a bike here, I'm always told, oh, you got to go to Ladakh. Leh Ladakh, you have to go a 10-day bike ride. And that's one thing that I haven't done, because even though I'm good at dodging traffic, I think my biking skills are not yet good enough. But to tell my wife I'm going 10 days to Leh Ladakh on a motorbike, that's my bucket list, to get her to agree. Not saying I'll get there and back safely, because I probably won't with my skills, but just to get her to agree, that's on my bucket list for sure.
Nice one. Who's been your biggest influence? One moment, one person that you believe changed your life for the better?
Well, I've spoken quite a bit about my father, his influence. So obviously, that was a big part. Hansi Cronje as a friend, even though he obviously went through a real tough time with bookmakers, and the way we know how his career ended, and then his life ended in a very tragic airplane accident. So Hansi was a big part of what I did and the enjoyment I had at cricket. But I had a school hockey coach, of all things, where at a rugby school, so a school of 1,000 boys at the high school, I had epilepsy as a youngster. Yes. So I wasn't allowed to play rugby because it's a very physical contact sport, so I would get concussed often. And in the whole school of 1,000 boys, there were only 60 boys who played hockey through all age groups. And this coach just thought, we're getting whipped every week, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a team for the future. So he has this 14-year-old kid. I like his spunk and his heart, and he's got good speed. I'll put him in the first team. So he supported me as a 14-year-old hockey player, played state hockey that same year at age 14, and 3 years of South African schools. So he was a very strict disciplinarian, but he was also somebody that made us work really hard as a team. So he felt that we didn't have the skill set, but we would certainly have the physical and fitness above other sides. And when you work hard together as a team, the results come because you've been through a lot together. Because nothing in life is easy. I mean, you basically choose your hard. You know, it's hard to be fit, but it's hard not to be fit. Choose your hard. You know, what do you want to achieve in that? And that first team hockey coach certainly taught me a lot about discipline. I said my father beat it into us kids, but with regards to sporting discipline, that first team hockey coach for 4 years, he was my mentor on how I approached my sporting career.
We're approaching time up, so I'm going to sneak this final question in. How do you deal with failure? I'm sure you went through your ups and downs. So how do you deal with failure?
So firstly, you spoke about the process. So because up and down from a player perspective and a coach point of view in a cricketing tournament, you got to recover really fast. The matches come thick and fast. And if you're up and down emotionally, your performance is probably going to copy that because of copy and paste. So focus on the process, focus on that. What are we doing right? But then the most important thing, and I kind of always go back to the way the Sri Lankans played in 1996 at that World Cup with Sanath and Ramesh Kalautarana. Yeah. They sent out these youngsters. If you see the ball, tuck, you hit it. Doesn't matter if it goes there or there for 6. We don't care what it looks like. But that freedom to fail was so important. And that's what I try and give now I'm talking specifically around the fielding, when I send players out to field. We've worked hard at practice, and I just say, guys, if that's exactly that. If you don't go, you'll never know. But players don't want to go for the ball and drop it or miss it if the coach then gives them a hard time or berates them for missing the opportunity. You know, I'll berate them if they stand there and the ball goes past. So that freedom to fail is vital if you're going to be successful. You know, we don't go out there to fail, for sure. Again, look at the process. Was it right? Look at technique, because there's technique to catching and diving and throwing. If there's something we fix, we fix. But if not, they need to play with that freedom that if there's failure, nobody's coming down on them like a ton of bricks. Freedom to fail is vital if you want to be successful.
If you don't go, you never know, and always go with the freedom to fail. Have that. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonty Rhodes.
Thank you. Thanks, Anand.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Thank you, Anand. Thank you so much. Mr. Rhodes, can I please have you stay back on the stage, please? All right. I would also like to invite D. Venkatesh, CEO of Lentra, to join Mr. Jonty Rhodes for the recognition ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now entering the recognition ceremony where we celebrate and honor organizations that have demonstrated excellence, innovation, and outstanding contributions in the digital lending landscape. Let's begin the acknowledgement of achievements with our first recognition. And we're going to play a bit of a guessing game. So, all right, I'm going to talk about the company, and I'll leave it on to you to decide who this absolutely fantastic player is. All right. Renowned for redefining, we're going for the digital distribution excellence first. Renowned for redefining financial experiences with its extensive network of 130 plus offices and 31,000 distribution points, it has prioritized automation to enhance customer and dealer experiences. Their accelerated cloud transformation ensures access to on-demand IT resources.